Russia and China have just taken a major step forward with the Power of Siberia 2 pipeline.
China, it's wrapped up its high-profile Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit with the announcement of a major energy deal with Russia.
Boost capacity of Russian natural gas deliveries to China.
News potentially of that new pipeline being set between Russia all the way to China.
And with the signing of a historic agreement between Russia and China, the Power of Siberia 2 pipeline is no longer just a proposal.
Big news today in the world of LNG. The Power of Siberia 2 pipeline was announced, the deal between China and Russia.
What if I told you the most dangerous weapon in the world right now isn't a missile or a nuclear warhead, but a pipeline buried under Siberian soil? A steel chain so quiet, so invisible, that it could decide the future of Russia, China, and even the West. And here's the creepy part. Almost nobody is talking about it. In global politics, not every battlefield involves weapons. Some of the most powerful moves are made through contracts, pipelines, and trade flows. Right now, one of the most important shifts in power is unfolding far from the public eye. It is called the Power of Siberia 2, a massive natural gas pipeline deal that binds Russia closer to China. This is not just about energy. Think of it as a slow-motion trap, an invisible leash tightening around Moscow's neck with Beijing holding the other end. At first glance, it looks like an energy agreement, but in reality it is a quiet strategy that allows Beijing to trap Moscow in a position of long-term dependence. This story has not made big headlines. It has been mentioned in newspapers and debated in policy circles, but on platforms like YouTube, where people consume global news in a deeper, more personal way, it has been underplayed. Yet the implications are enormous. This deal is not only about gas. It is about leverage, economics, and the future balance of power between two giants. Why this deal matters? To understand the importance of Power of Siberia 2, we must look at the broader context. Since the invasion of Ukraine, Russia has been cut off from many of its traditional energy customers in Europe. For decades, Europe was addicted to Russian gas.
Ukraine is that Europe is now scrambling to reduce its dependence on Russian energy. The price of gas was already high before the invasion.
But today the roles have flipped. Russia is the addict and its only dealer is China. That income once financed Moscow's budget, military, and geopolitical reach. But Western sanctions changed everything. Russia suddenly had energy with fewer buyers. Meanwhile, China was hungry for more gas to power its economy. The pipeline looks like a win-win. Russia finds a customer, China secures fuel. But beneath the surface lies something darker: Russia's desperation. Russia enters this deal from a position of weakness. Before 2022, it could balance Europe against Asia. That balance is gone. China is now its only large-scale buyer. Imagine your family business loses every customer overnight, except one. That one customer now controls your future. That's Russia today. This isn't just about gas. Russia is exporting its leverage, its independence, maybe even its sovereignty. China's strategy of dependence. China isn't desperate for Russian gas. It has alternatives. But by locking Russia into a pipeline, Beijing gains permanent leverage. The cage is made of steel and gas, but the lock is time. Once Russia steps inside, the door will quietly close, and Beijing keeps the key. This is a trap in slow motion. Moscow thinks it's solving today's crisis, but it's digging itself into decades of dependence. The geography of power. Pipelines are different from oil shipments. Oil can be sold anywhere by tanker. Pipelines can't move. They tie two nations together permanently. Pipelines aren't infrastructure, they're chains. Once the Power of Siberia 2 is built, Russia won't be able to escape. The gas flows one way, like blood through veins that can never be rerouted. This pipeline is not a business project, it's foreign policy cast in steel. The price question. One of the most underreported parts of this deal is the price. China is pushing for cheaper rates than Russia wants. China is buying Russia's lifeline at a discount. Every cubic meter of gas becomes a reminder that Moscow has no better options. That means Russia loses billions in revenue over time. And as its economy weakens, its ability to fund the government and military shrinks. Beijing gets leverage without firing a single shot. Geopolitical shifts. The Power of Siberia 2 changes more than trade. It changes global politics. Russia risks becoming a junior partner to China, a title it has feared for centuries. For the first time in modern history, the Kremlin's future may not be decided in Moscow, but in Beijing. That dependence shapes every decision from the UN to Central Asia and the wider region. This dependence won't just affect Russia. Central Asia, where both powers compete, will feel the shift. China will expand, Belt and Road will grow stronger, and Russia will weaken. Europe will notice too. With Russia locked into Asia, Europe's gas blackmail fades. But in its place, China gains leverage over Moscow, and indirectly over the world. The silence of the story. What makes this deal eerie is how quietly it has been covered. Pipelines are slow, underground, invisible. They don't explode across TV screens, wars scream. Pipelines whisper, and whispers can be more dangerous, because no one notices until it's too late. Rome built roads. Britain built ports. The Soviets built pipelines. Now China is building quiet empires of steel beneath the earth. What comes next? The pipeline is not yet complete. Negotiations continue. Russia hopes for better terms, but China knows it has the upper hand. Every day that passes, the news tightens. Moscow thinks it's negotiating, but Beijing is just waiting for desperation to do the work. For Beijing, this is perfect timing. With guaranteed Russian gas, it can prepare for its bigger rivalry with the United States without fear of energy shocks. A trap in slow motion. The Power of Siberia 2 is not a dramatic coup. It is a trap that closes slowly over decades. Russia thinks it is solving a problem, but it may be creating an even bigger one: permanent dependence on China. No bombs, no bullets, no coups. Just contract steel and silence. This is how empires die, not with a bang, but with a pipeline. The military angle. Pipelines are not just economic tools, they are military liabilities. Once Russia locks into Power of Siberia 2, Beijing could use pipeline security as an excuse to expand its military presence in Central Asia. Protecting energy interests becomes the perfect cover for stationing troops, building bases, or extending surveillance. In the long run, this could quietly erode Russia's influence over its own backyard. The domestic risk for Moscow. Selling gas cheap to China might keep Moscow afloat in the short term, but it risks angering ordinary Russians who see shrinking revenues, collapsing public services, and a ruling elite still living in luxury. What looks like survival abroad may turn into political instability at home. History shows that Russian leaders lose legitimacy when economic dependence turns into humiliation. The global ripple effect. If China gains a stranglehold on Russian energy, it reshapes the global chessboard. Europe becomes less vulnerable to Moscow, but the US suddenly faces a China with guaranteed cheap fuel for decades. That energy security could power Beijing's industries, military, and AI-driven technologies, accelerating the US-China rivalry. In that sense, Power of Siberia 2 is not only Russia's trap, it could be the fuel for China's rise to superpower dominance. The environmental vulnerability. Pipelines are not indestructible. They cross harsh Siberian landscapes vulnerable to permafrost thaw, earthquakes, and sabotage. A single rupture could spark ecological disaster, poisoning rivers and forests while halting gas flows. This fragility means Russia is locked into constant maintenance costs, while China enjoys the leverage of demanding uninterrupted supply regardless of Moscow's internal struggles. The technological dependency. To build and operate Power of Siberia 2, Russia increasingly relies on Chinese technology, equipment, and financing. Western sanctions cut off access to advanced pipeline systems and monitoring tools. That dependency gives Beijing yet another layer of control. Not only does China buy the gas, but it also provides the tools to deliver it. This makes Russia technologically handcuffed, unable to operate its own infrastructure independently. The information war. China and Russia present the deal as a partnership of equals, but state media on both sides spin different narratives. Beijing portrays Russia as a supplier serving China's rise, while Moscow frames the pipeline as a geopolitical triumph. The truth lies in between, but the propaganda shapes domestic opinion. In the long run, when reality bites harder than the narrative, public disillusionment in Russia could fuel unrest, while China strengthens its image as the power pulling the strings. Final thought. Energy is the bloodstream of modern economies. Whoever controls it controls the future. By tying Russia's exports to its own needs, China is gaining power that could last for decades. For Russia, the deal offers survival, but at a cost. For China, it offers leverage without confrontation. And for the rest of the world, it offers a lesson. Sometimes the most important battles are not fought on fields or in parliaments, but along the quiet lines of pipelines buried deep beneath the earth. The question is no longer whether Russia can sell its gas. The question is whether it can sell its gas without selling its independence. And that, more than any war, may decide the balance of power in Eurasia for the next generation.